Living audaciously. In this talk, I'll be explaining to you what living audaciously is, the steps that you can take to live audaciously, and also people that I think live their life audaciously as well. Audacious. What a crazy sounding word. People who live audaciously take risks to achieve the things that they want. The important thing is you have to take risks. You can't be audacious and live within your comfort zone. I want to start with an example. On the screen, you can see myself, my very good friend, Sharon Watson. I met Sharon when I was 11 years old, and from the first day I met her, she was full of life. If Sharon wanted to learn how to knit, she'd buy the equipment, find a YouTube video, and you see her knitting away. If Sharon wanted to learn how to skate, somehow she'd get her hands on some skates, and you see her falling, getting up, falling, but she'd learn how to skate. If Sharon wanted to go to the cinema or the theater, the next time you'd hear about it was when she came back and she was telling you the review about what she'd seen. This is someone who lived life on her terms. A few years ago, Sharon was diagnosed with cancer at 22 years old. And for so many of us, we were devastated. But she looked at us and said, "Why are you guys all overreacting?" Because in her mind, she was going to continue to live her life the way that she wanted to. Even through all the treatment, all the appointments, all the surgeries, she maintained that she was going to live life to the fullest of her ability, whatever that looked like in that moment. I have a good example. I remember after one of Sharon's hip surgeries, she was adamant that she was going to ride a bike. So in true Sharon fashion, she stood up, started shuffling, then started walking, then started running, and before you know it, she was terrorizing everyone on her bike. Unfortunately, in October 16, 2021, around 8:15 a.m., Sharon lost her battle to cancer. And for so many of us, we're heartbroken, and we still are. But in that moment, I asked myself a question. How do I really want to live my life? I was also inspired by these people. The people that said, "I don't want to do this anymore." In the midst of the pandemic, people had done the same jobs they had done for years, with the same colleague they had known forever. The only difference now was that people were working from home. So they had more time to spend with their families, to work from locations that they couldn't before, to really focus on side hobbies and side hustles that they didn't have time to before. People realized, you know what? I really love my dog. My family aren't too bad either. I really like the fact that I can work so close to the beach. I want to spend all my time working on my hobbies and my side hustles. And just like that, people said, "I don't want to do this anymore," and quit their jobs. So with those two pieces of inspiration, Sharon and these groups of people that were quitting their jobs, I then came up with this. Living audaciously. It's about creating and living a life that you choose and not one that is given to you. I'm going to repeat that. Living audaciously is about living a life that you choose and not one that is given to you. So now you're thinking, how do I do that? You've got to start with 3 questions. Questions are all important. They're in an intentional order, and they all take time. The first one, what brings you joy? This is so important, because whatever you do, you have to center joy. For me, I love to travel. So I know no matter what job I have, where I am, what I'm doing, I'm really going to prioritize traveling. I also like to eat. So it's a big priority for me to try new foods. Next food, I'll probably try some Somali food because I heard it's really nice. What's important to you? This might seem so simple and so easy. Oh, of course I know what's important to me. But when you're in that really high-pressure environment, or you have a really attractive salary for a job you're not sure you want, it's so difficult to remember what's important to you. It's also important to make sure that you rank these things, because there are no two things are important. And it means that when you are in those situations, you can make decisions much quicker. And finally, who do I want to be? This question is quite deep, because you have to think about who you are holistically. Then you have to think about who you want to be, and then reverse engineer that so you can find the gaps between where you are now and where you want to be. You can figure out a plan. So those are the 3 steps to figure out how you really want to live audaciously. But as I was on that journey, thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to live audaciously? What brings me joy? I couldn't ignore the thing that was over there in the back of my head. I know that this year, 1.3 million people are at risk of falling below the poverty line. 120 million people have fallen into extreme poverty as a result of COVID. This year, the average UK inflation rate is set to be 7.4%. This is unsustainable for the poorest people in our communities. And I just couldn't ignore that. At the same time, I saw this quote, and it said, "To be free is not merely to cast off one's chain, but it's to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others." So then I knew at this point that to truly live audaciously, you had to help others to do the same. So now, I'm going to give you an example of someone that I think does exactly that. Her name is Varaizo Kativu, or V. She was on this stage a few years ago, giving a talk about the importance of words and the meanings that they have. This is someone who really embodies living audaciously. She wanted to go to Oxford and Harvard, so guess what she did? She went there. She loves to travel, and at this moment, she's in Cambodia. She also wanted to start a YouTube channel, and as of today, she has over 260,000 subscribers. This is someone who really lives the life that they choose. But she was also aware that people didn't have equal access to education. So as well as creating content, she set up an organization called Empowered by V, which works to create equitable access to education for young people, especially young girls. This is someone who helps others to live audaciously. Now, I can't be giving a talk about living audaciously if I don't explain how I live audaciously. Up until 6 years old, I lived in Jamaica, and I really suffered with very uncontrolled asthma. So I was in and out of hospital frequently. There were points that I was minutes away from passing away. If it wasn't for the great help of the healthcare professionals, but as well as the fact that my mum could afford my medication, she could afford the equipment that I needed to sustain my life until I got to hospital, and also the fact that we had a car that could drive me up to an hour away. These things played a pivotal role in me being here today. So I knew that I wanted to do something about this. And I knew that I wanted to help the community that I lived in. So I decided I was going to be a doctor. And today, I'm a final year medical student, and in a matter of weeks, I'm going to graduate and be a doctor. Thank you. I also recognized that there were systemic barriers that were stopping people from accessing good jobs. So I decided to join the EY Foundation Youth Advisory Board so that I can be a part of the solution to help upskill people, give them access to opportunities that they need, to access jobs that they want. I also recognized that a lot of my peers went through education without learning the necessary skills to thrive after school. So I co-founded an organization called the Ladder Project, which helps to holistically develop young people and give them the skills that they need to thrive in any path that they choose. As a Caribbean male, I recognize that Caribbean boys are being disproportionately excluded from schools, as well as having lower attainment. So I decided to join a governing body so that I can help to remove the barriers to success for this group as well as all students. And last but not least, I've been a part of a number of social mobility activities. As a result, I've helped thousands of young people access the schools, the jobs, and the universities that they want to. So, I want to end this by telling you, how can you help others to live audaciously? The first thing you have to do is remember the 3 questions. What brings you joy? What's important to you? Who do you want to be? Because then that allows you to find your thing. Some people call it purpose, some people call it your why, but I think that just puts too much pressure on it. It's your thing. You can have multiple things, and your thing can change. But it's so important that whatever your thing is, it's informed by the 3 questions. And then that allows you to then do the small things regularly. Myself included, I'm someone who used to say, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the resources or the expertise, so I couldn't start. Actually, there's a quote, it's a very good one, and it says, if you couldn't speak, what would your actions say you care about? So start doing the small things now. A small thing can look different today than it does tomorrow. It depends on what stage of life you're in. And a small thing can grow into something bigger. But just start. If there's anything that you take away from this today, it's important that you live a life that you choose. But more importantly, help others to live a life that they choose to. Thank you.